Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to explore some complex topics, maybe uncover some surprising insights along the way. Today we're going deep into the really intriguing history and, frankly, the mysteries still swirling around Antarctica, one of Earth's most extreme places, right? We're going to look at some historical accounts, some pretty speculative theories, too, about, hidden truths, maybe covered up government operations down there. So our mission today is really to unpack this fascinating event, Operation High Jump. We'll talk about the unexpected discoveries made during it and a really radical theory some researchers think might explain it all. We've got some great sources, an article from TeleHub, a piece from the Antarctica Enigma, and a report from the Daviess County Historical Society. We're going to sift through these, trying to figure out what was really going on in the frozen South, why all the secrecy, and maybe what it means for how we understand our planet. So what if everything you thought you knew about Earth was just the surface?
That's a powerful starting point. And it ties right into Operation High Jump. I mean, picture this. It's 1946. World War II just ended. The whole world is shaky. Economies are volatile. So why? Why would the U.S. military pour so many resources into Antarctica, of all places?
Yeah, that scale, it just doesn't fit the usual post-war picture, does it?
Yeah.
This wasn't just a small team going down. We're like an Operation High Jump, led by Admiral Richard Byrd, a huge name back then. Our sources say nearly 5,000 U.S. military folks, 13 ships, planes. Basically, they threw everything the Navy had at it.
Yep, that's it.
Oh, well, an incredibly big and expensive move for 1946.
And what's really striking is coupling that huge scale with intense secrecy. Despite being so massive, the details were, as our sources put it, carefully typed away, shrouded by secrecy, kept from the American public. The initial orders were crystal clear. No foreign observers, no diplomatic negotiations. It was strictly a Navy show.
Right. And the official reasons they gave out, they seem a bit, underwhelming for all that military hardware. Officially, it was about setting up a research base, Little America 4, training people, testing gear in the cold, determining if bases were feasible, also developing techniques for air bases on ice, getting more scientific data hydrography, geology, that kind of thing, and supplementing another expedition.
You're right. Those stated goals, especially when they later denied trying to claim territory during the mission, it feels off. Journalists back then were suspicious. They saw all the military gear and thought, what's really going on here?
It definitely makes you question the true motivations, beyond the public statements.
Choosing Admiral Byrd to lead, that was smart. National hero, polar exploration pioneer, first to fly over both poles. Decorated like crazy. But the actual military command, Task Force 68, that was Rear Admiral Richard Cruzen. Can you imagine being Cruzen, sailing into conditions described as bad as had been noted for over a century? Even for polar veterans, that sounds intense. It really shows how important they thought this mission was. Oh, absolutely. Cruzen's main group hit the Ross Sea ice pack right at the end of December 46. They faced massive icebergs, crazy weather, had to push through hundreds of miles of ice just to get to Little America. He actually got the Antarctic Expedition Medal for it later, which, highlights just how tough and significant his job was.
Okay, so all that effort, all that secrecy, all that hardware, leading to what? Our sources hint that the actual real reason, the one only people with top secret clearance knew, was to find several oases.
And apparently they did. During that 46-47 trip, they sighted 2 oases. One was described as a region of ice-free lakes and land. Think about that in Antarctica. And the aerial surveys, they mapped over 300,000 square miles of previously unknown territory. These findings apparently proved that radical changes would have to be made on existing maps of the Antarctic.
Wow. Okay, so that brings us to a really fascinating point. Why would you find warm spots, ice-free lakes, in Antarctica? This discovery alone it challenges our basic picture of the planet, doesn't it?
It really does. And this finding, along with maybe some other weird observations, has led some researchers down a very, very different path. They propose this quite radical explanation, the idea that the Earth itself could be a hollow egg-like shape, which leads directly to what people call the hollow Earth theory.
Okay, hold on. I mean, for most of us listening, that probably sounds pretty out there, hard to grasp, right?
Yeah.
We're all taught in school that the Earth has a solid inner core, then liquid outer core, mantle, crust. So how do proponents even begin to argue against that?
Yeah, it's definitely a big leap from standard geology. And look, mainstream geophysics overwhelmingly considers hollow Earth theory pseudoscience. But the sources we're looking at, they gather these interesting observations, historical tidbits that some researchers interpret as supporting it. Like one piece of evidence they often bring up is how the Earth rings like a bell after an earthquake for maybe up to an hour. The argument from the hollow Earth side is, Well, if it were solid, wouldn't the quake just be absorbed? Why would it resonate like that?
The Earth ringing like a bell. That's a vivid image. But doesn't mainstream science have an explanation for earthquake vibrations?
It does, absolutely. Seismologists study what they call normal modes of vibration after large quakes. And these vibrations, these ringing modes, are actually predicted by and consistent with models of a layered, predominantly solid Earth. Elastic bodies do resonate. So while the phenomenon is real, the interpretation is where the divergence happens. The ringing itself isn't necessarily proof of hollowness according to standard physics.
Okay, got it. And it's not just these interpretations of modern science, right? The sources mention historical accounts, too.
Exactly. They point out that, well, almost every ancient culture seems to have myths or legends about inner worlds or something inside the Earth, underground realms.
Interesting. And there are modern researchers pursuing this, like Dr. Brooks Agnew.
Yeah, Dr. Agnew is mentioned as someone who thinks a hollow Earth is a very real possibility. His focus was apparently the North Pole area. He was looking for what's described as a documented polar depression, basically, a huge opening or curve inwards at the pole. He even had these ambitious plans for test overflights from a nuclear-powered icebreaker.
Wow. Did that happen?
No, it seems that expedition didn't get off the ground due to lack of funding. But his proposed method was interesting, using a sun compass and gyroscope way up north, above the 60th parallel, to measure the ocean's curvature very precisely. His theory was, if that curvature started changing rapidly, increasing, it might mean they were entering this long, elusive polar depression that you hear about in old Viking tales and from some sailors.
Huh. And Agnew connects this to broader physics ideas.
Right. He talks about planet formation, Isaac Newton, thick and thin crust physics, how different layers might behave, even zero-gravity concepts. He tries to weave these established physics principles into his unconventional model. It's important to say, though, his interpretations are definitely not mainstream scientific consensus.
Okay. So, beyond the theoretical stuff from Agnew, our sources bring up some other weird, unexplained things, like reindeer in Antarctica.
Yeah, that one's a real head-scratcher. Apparently, Norwegian whalers left some reindeer on South Georgia, an island near Antarctica, over 100 years ago. They didn't expect them to last. But the puzzle is, a century later, they're not just surviving, they're thriving, and nobody can get rid of them.
Seriously, reindeer thriving near Antarctica, how is that even possible? They're Arctic animals.
Exactly. It's a genuine biological mystery for scientists. How did they adapt? What are they eating? But, for hollow Earth proponents, this kind of baffling survival against the odds sometimes gets pointed to as maybe hinting at unexpectedly milder conditions somewhere, perhaps linked to those erases or something internal.
Okay, that is strange. And then there's something completely different, an experiment on the International Space Station with water.
Right. This is pretty interesting. So the ISS crew did these experiments in zero gravity, watching how water behaves. A drop forms a perfect sphere, right? But here's the weird part. They added tiny bits of orange peel to the water bubble. And these bits floated to the surface of the bubble. They didn't gather in the center, which is what the crew apparently expected. It confused them.
Huh. Orange peels floating to the outside of a water bubble in space. How does that connect?
Well, the interpretation offered by hollow Earth proponents is that this is like a tiny model of planet formation. They suggest it shows how heavier elements, the crust, might naturally move to the surface of a spinning body rather than sinking to the core. So they see it as potentially supporting the idea of a hollow structure with a crust on the outside. Again, these are interpretations, compelling anecdotes for some, but it's crucial to remember mainstream physics has very solid, established explanations for gravity, planetary formation, seismic waves, and none of them involve a hollow Earth.
Okay, so quite a journey we've taken. We navigated the very secretive Operation High Jump. We uncovered these bizarre ice-free oases down there, and we explored this really radical hollow Earth theory, looking at the evidence presented for it, the ongoing research, but also keeping the mainstream scientific view in mind.
Definitely a lot to think about. So for you listening, what really stands out from this deep dive into the unknown?
Yeah, it makes you wonder if, according to these alternative ideas, the Earth isn't quite the solid ball we've always been told. What other really fundamental beliefs about our world might be, ready for a second look? How much more might be hidden deep beneath the surface, just waiting to be found?